Story 1. The scent of matches after the flame goes out is oddly comforting, like a mix of smoke and something burnt, lingering in the air. Story 2. Puppy breath is apparently not as common as I thought. It was also one of my pregnancy cravings. The smell of puppy breath is delightful. Story 3. Puppy breath. I haven't smelled it in years, but whenever I get the chance again, I will revel in it like a weirdo. Story 4. The scent of the water on boat rides at theme parks is hard to ignore. It is this strange mix of dampness and chlorine that always stands out. Story 5. I have a poor sense of smell. Almost all perfumes smell the same to me. I can't smell flowers, and my wife dislikes this greatly. She'll get a perfume she really likes and ask if I like it, but she forgets that I can't smell anything. However, my nose is acutely tuned to unusual scents. Blindfold me and make me smell vials of various automotive fluids, and I can identify every one of them. The smells I love trigger memories that I hold dearly. The scent of sawdust and aerosol wood lacquer reminds me of my grandfather's shop. The smell of corn and soybean dust takes me back to the grain elevator across the road from their house. The odor of a musty abandoned building recalls a structure they owned and used for storage. One of the best smells is high-octane race fuel after it has been burned. I spent a lot of time helping a close friend's family race on dirt tracks, and the fuel they use smells incredible. Story 6. Ever since I was a kid, I have loved the smell of freezers. Taking a deep whiff from the back of a freezer or sticking my head into a deep freeze brings me joy. Cardboard boxes usually hold that smell well. Cannot fully describe it, but I love it. Story 7. I spent years working with an epoxy adhesive Plexus MA310. It was exceptionally strong, both in holding items together and in its smell. We could use it in our workshop with the door closed, and I could smell it from 50 meters down the hall and up a flight of stairs. Although there was no real danger unless someone was inhaling it or got it on their skin, we wore respirators. I was the main user for about 4 years, and I began to associate the smell with significant progress. I became conditioned to feel happy when I smelled it and eventually stopped wearing my respirator when I knew the people around me wouldn't report it. Story 8. Gasoline is strangely addictive. The scent of rain on hot pavement, known as petrichor, is also appealing. Freshly sharpened pencils, old vinyl records, and books are enjoyable as well. Story 9. Funeral homes are the only places where my family wouldn't harm me. So when my mind associates a funeral home viewing room with a calm atmosphere, I genuinely relax. I think to myself, dead people are here, no one is going to hurt me. Story 10. Sometimes, after it hasn't rained for a while in the summer, there's a rustic smell that is my favorite. Story 11. New electronics. I still remember the smell of the GameCube on Christmas morning. Turns out it is probably just ozone. Story 12. Weed. The smell of a crop growing should be made into air fresheners. For a plant that is fertilized by the wind, it puts a lot of energy into creating terpenes that it doesn't really need. Story 13. The smell from train or subway rails, which I think is creosote, the scent of a new book, and the aroma of windshield washer fluid. Story 14. I miss most smells. Any kind of smell would be welcoming. I lost my sense of smell 3 years ago after my suicide attempt. To answer the question, I particularly miss the smell of Red Bull and my Old Spice Bear Glove body wash. Story 15. The smell of a freshly creosote fence on a sunny day is oddly specific. Whenever I encounter that scent, my mind is transported back to being about 6 years old. Story 16. Skunk cabbage is one of the first plants to bloom in spring. It's nice when it's not too close, because you know that winter is almost over. Story 17. I appreciate the scent of my close friends, even when they are actively sweating and in need of deodorant. I have never shared this with anyone, but when a friend starts to smell pleasant to me, I know that person has become part of my inner circle. The only person I confided in was my mother, and she told me I was a strange child. Story 18. Freshly cut grass and mud after the first rain are pleasant scents I enjoy. Gasoline, marker pen, and whiteout are unpleasant scents I dislike. Story 19. I somewhat enjoy the smell of tar. I realize this is random, but the tar on the road is not too bad, as long as I do not have a headache. Story 20. I received a worn but laundered shirt scented with cologne from a long-distance friend. I mostly enjoyed sniffing the armpit area to catch his scent rather than the cologne. There was a faint aroma there that I loved so much. Story 21. Carpet store. I used to go into Carpetright as a kid to hang out and sniff the carpets. I was a bit odd. Story 22. The burning dust from the first time you turn on your heater in the winter and the smell of chlorine in public pools both remind me of my childhood during school breaks. Story 23. A really ripe and unusual smell, like when it resembles cardboard. The kind that makes you get up and move. I can't stop giggling. I love it so much. Story 24. Haha. I just cooked an omelette with a specific smell I enjoy. Pimento seed. I love to crush them in the pestle and mortar and smell them. Story 25. Moss reminds me of a childhood home I had as a toddler and brings back many comforting memories. It honestly astounds me how a smell can be so powerful that it activates vivid memories, while visuals and sounds can barely scratch the surface. Story 26. The smell of a feed mill always reminds me of Saturday morning drives to Amish country with my dad. Story 27. The smell of durian fruit, which is native to Southeast Asian countries, is described by some as tasting like heaven but smelling like hell. Story 28. After I got my septum piercing, it would crust over during the healing process and develop a certain smell when I moved it around. It sounds unpleasant, but it was a strangely good experience. Story 29. Specific but not odd. I think it is hickory smoke. Some restaurants near me cook with wood. I can smell it from the highway. I am pretty sure it is hickory, but whatever it is enticing. Story 30. Hear me out. A mix of smoked sausage and mayonnaise when heated up. It smells like childhood and puts my mind at ease. Story 31. Cement dust. We had to do some demolition on our house and had to grind against some concrete board, and I loved it. I couldn't breathe too deeply or I would cough, but the light smell of the dust that came up was amazing. Also, the musty smell that would arise when my parents' old evaporative cooler kicked on. Story 32. Violet leaves are crushed, releasing the scent of petrichor and wet soil, reminiscent of the inside of a walk-in beer freezer at the supermarket. Story 33. The musky smell of my parents' house on a humid summer evening. The scent of the clothing that has been sitting in my old dresser for 15 years. Story 34. After your girl gets out of the shower, the fresh, clean scent is different from the other. I prefer the latter. Story 35. The smell of brewing hops is pleasant. I don't drink beer, but we live a block away from a brewery, and I find the aroma enjoyable. Story 36. Petrol, nail varnish, a very specific black marker, and furniture polish. It sounds like I have a solvent abuse disorder. Story 37. I love the smell of pine sol. Everyone in my house hates it, so I don't use it, but if I lived alone, I would scrub my floors with it every day. Story 38. The smell of a campfire when you pour water on the embers to extinguish it. I am pretty sure it's mostly just steam mixed with smoke, but I can't get enough of it. Story 39. Damp smell. As a child, I slept on an old, damp mattress, and I liked the smell so much that when I rented a loft room and had a leak that went straight into my mattress, I completely ignored it. It felt so normal to me. Only when I moved out did the next renter complain that I hadn't warned them about the leak. Story 40. Sunscreen. I was bedridden for a long time, and the first time I could go out in the sun and use sunscreen, it immediately took me back to the sea. Story 41. I work in line extrusion. Nukrol's AE acid copolymer resin pellets smell like a sporty deodorant to me. Story 42. The Ecolab cleaner used in the meat department gives the meat room the cleanest, freshest smell ever. I'm obsessed. Story 43. Bondo. My dad was a mechanic who worked from our home garage, so I often smelled it. I would occasionally buy a can just to enjoy the scent. Story 44. The rubbery plastic smell of a new toy, right out of the box. reminds me of childhood and Christmas morning. Story 45. Skunk. I have never been directly sprayed, so I think that would be too much. However, when I drive past an area that has the smell, I like it. Story 46. Some brand new electronic devices have a nice subtle smell. The Psion 3A had it, and some notebooks experience it for a few days, as do some mobile phones. Story 47. The heavy smell of cooked yeast always reminded me of Peter Piper Pizza, Pizza Hut, and Round Table Pizza. Story 48. I haven't been able to smell anything for a couple of years due to sinus issues, so I will take anything at this point. That said, what I really miss is the smell of grass after rain. Story 49. The smell of a campfire, the aroma of someone grilling steak, the scent of sulfur from a match, and the odor of gasoline all evoke strong feelings. I might be a pyromaniac. Story 50. I have an oil perfume called Library. Smells like old books and is my favorite. Solstice Scents is the company if anyone is interested. All of their scents smell like their names, such as Fall Hayride, Beach, and Bonfire. Amazing. Story 51. I don't smoke and can't stand the smell of cigarette smoke. I find vape mist annoying as well. However, there used to be a tobacco shop that sold pipe tobacco and cigars. I would always pause while walking past to sniff the sweet, musky aroma that wafted out. Story 52. Freshly minted cash. The bills might stick together, but $3 never smelled so good. On the other hand, after being passed around in sweaty hands, pockets, socks, and bras, it becomes so disgusting that it should not come near my face. Story 53. Incense. When it is fresh from the packet or when it is a hot summer evening and you let it burn, it creates such a comforting feeling. Story 54. My grandma's house. She passed away 3 years ago, and the one thing I took from her place was a blanket in a plastic zipper bag. Every now and then, I unzip it for a quick whiff and hurriedly zip it back up. Story 55. The smell of people doing laundry in my city neighborhood is noticeable as I walk down the street. The scent of soap, likely from the dryers being vented, combines to create an pleasing aroma. Story 56. A freshly opened package of Babolat Touch versus Natural Gut tennis strings emits a heavenly scent of chemicals. Story 57. The warm glue smell of a paper laminator and the scent of my favorite brand of personal lubricant, Aqua Glide. Story 58. The smell of sweat, which has a strangely sweet scent to me, the aroma of old or newly purchased books, the fragrance of rain, and the scent of newly bought clothing. Story 59. I love the smell of an old bookstore or library. I also love the smell of a bonfire on an autumn night. Additionally, I really liked the scent of my grandmother's house. I will never be able to recapture that. She doesn't live there anymore. It always made me feel very comfortable. Story 60. I said it before and I will say it again, my cat. My orange cat smells like freshly baked whole wheat on a crisp October day, and I will sit there for about 10 minutes with my face in the cat's belly. Story 61. Two-stroke fuel reminds me of my dad's little outboard motorboat. Vine tomatoes take me back to my grandfather's greenhouse. Inflatables like swim rings and pool floats remind me of the rubber smell of the face mask from when I gave birth. The smell of hot water evokes the same memory. Story 62. The smell of my oldest dog's head brings back memories. I got him when I was at a very low point in my life, and he holds a special place in my heart. Strangely, he smells like a cookie. Story 63. This pomegranate-flavored soap that I encountered last week in a cafe took me back to when I was 8 years old and spent a summer at my grandmother's house. Story 64. A lot of good scents here that I agree with. The smell of air conditioning in the car after it has been off for weeks. The smell of bleach after the butcher cleans the machine, which I associate with cleanliness. The new car smell. And strangely enough, the smell of summer chemicals from a brand new roll of cling wrap, at least the ones I use at work on the production line. Story 65. I love the smell of puppies. My dogs had 10 puppies when I was 4, and I have loved that scent ever since. Story 66. My husband's body odor can be a bit strong. He tends to have a noticeable smell after 2 days without showering. Story 67. Weird or specific smells I love include rain, old books, my partner's sweat. I don't know why, but it's just satisfying and calming, and men's shower gels and deodorants. Story 68. When I was a child, I used to love the smell of the first smoke that comes from a freshly lit cigarette. I can't explain it, and I have only met one person who has told me the same thing. Story 69. Fresh air, burning leaves, a fireplace with pine, freshly cut grass, watermelon, orange peel, puppy paws, corn chips, leather gloves, leather car interior, new carpet, and new paint. Story 70. That damp herbal, woody, and floral smell of decomposing forest material found deep in the woods. Story 71. Lest oil is not a fake pine cleaner, but the real deal. It reminds me of my grandma. She was moving, and my mom and I were helping her clean. There's a great memory associated with the smell. Story 72. Hand sanitizer, specifically X-Germ, has a scent reminiscent of the flavor of Sierra Mist. I notice this distinct smell every time I use hand sanitizer. Story 73. I haven't identified what exactly causes it. It's a smell of old train tracks in the sun, probably the wood preservative. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.